Okay, what's your name?
Lighter.
Okay.
Ajisafe.
You're not in jail. Hi. Hi, Lola, what's up?
Hi, how you doing? Number 7770008889. Lighter Ajisafe, otherwise known as Lola, otherwise known as Dr. Ajisafe.
What's that number?
I don't know, man. It's meant to be a prison number, but you know.
Dr. Thug Life over here.
No, actually, it's the COVID number. COVID number 77089999.
Is it really?
No, just made that up. Just made that up.
Okay, tell us.
Because even up to now, by that time, we weren't allowing people in with family members or guests. Because try and control the numbers, try and control the spread of infection. So you just had people who were really sick by themselves, looking around and spending their last moments trying to figure out what to do. And then you had people who were not too sick, but not well enough that they could go home. But everybody was by themselves. The nurses were overwhelmed, and by that time, the government or the states hadn't put things in measure, so we were short-staffed. So you'd have maybe 2 nurses for 50 people. That makes no sense. That means who's going to do the lines, who's going to give the meds, who's going to talk to... It was literally impossible. So that's what and then of course, typically in our emergency room, let's say you have 1 or 2 people who might die or pass. Maybe if that, a day or a shift. On my shift, I could have 4. We couldn't move people out fast enough. You just got someone covered in a white sheet, put in the corner. You know what happened. It was a different experience. I remember talking with a lot of the people who had been practicing for a long time. They said they'd never seen anything like this before. It was just there wasn't like a rhyme or reason or a system in thing. Because initially we were saying, oh, you know what? If you're older, if you have pre-existing conditions, then you might be at risk. But we were just seeing different things. Young people, old people, we couldn't explain. So yeah, that was it. There was no way to really triage people of sorts and say, okay, we think you might be sick, maybe you should stay. But we knew we couldn't keep everyone. So what we're telling people who didn't appear to be too sick, we're like, you know what? Isolate yourself, manage your symptoms at home. But if you feel you can't breathe, come back. But yeah, it was a little overwhelming.
Did that feel as a fairly new doctor?
I think what affected me at that point was 2 things. One, I felt like, okay, it was not so much about the medicine because there was no medicine to treat them, but it was more about maybe relating with the patients and trying to spend your last moments with them, like talking with them and relating with them and trying to see. At that time, we tried to use either our phones or when we finally bought iPads so they could call their families and FaceTime them. And then the second thing to me was, just looking at the climate, the political climate at the time, when, 45 was, just defending his actions or having press conferences to support his, re-election. It just seemed to be a disconnect or something. He was tone deaf as to what was going on. So you had a bunch of people being affected because for us, in my department, so many people were affected, people I worked with. One of the guys who was a transporter, who transport patients maybe from our place to the CT, died. He was COVID positive. This was a really jovial guy, always happy, cracking jokes. Everyone knew him. They called him the mayor. I heard he was admitted. He was in ICU. Then he's been downgraded. He was intubated, tricked where they have to put, attach him to the machine through his throat. And eventually died. And so even other people, like for example, some of the attendings I work with, there was one particular guy, his mother and his mother-in-law passed in the same week. Another attending I worked with, her dad died. Her mother is still alive, but really sick. Everyone was affected. One of the med students who used to work there, he was walking, was downstairs. Unknown to me, his mother was upstairs. She passed. So a lot of people were affected where they lost people. And somebody out there is, just misbehaving in front of the cameras.